So Corey, how long have you been working with wood, and what attracts you to that medium?
I've been working with wood for actually just about 5 years, and actually a particular kind of wood, poplar panels. And what I really love about working with wood, is particularly poplar, is that it has a high absorptive quality, or it's soft. The grain structure is subtle, but also sometimes dramatic. Typically it's light in color, and it allows me to work with paint in a way where the color of the actual wood ground doesn't affect the paint color as much as it would if I were working with a darker wood. So really sensual qualities. I really love the sensual qualities of wood, the texture, grain, those kinds of things.
And you said that you can buy the panels at Lowe's,
yeah,
kind of home improvement store. Do you look for something in particular when choosing the panel itself?
I do. Grain structure is really important to me. So what I generally do is pull out all of the boards within on the shelf, usually 6 to 8 foot boards, and I go through them all looking for particular grain structure. And color is important too, although sometimes I do choose darker wood with specific pieces in mind. But typically it's the fluidity of the grain that draws me to the piece. Yeah.
Tell me a little about your working process once you start painting.
Okay, the very first step is to kind of compose a panel by drawing frames onto the board itself. So with like a T-square or just a ruler, I'll set aside areas within the board to cut that will ultimately be the surface of the piece that I'm making. After that, I sand it down. It's not always in the same way. Sometimes I sand it really smooth using fine grained sandpaper, and sometimes a little bit more coarse depending on textural elements I'm kind of interested in. And then I begin laying out composition with usually a ruler based on general studies that I make in my sketchbook, really quick thumbnail sketches. As I lay it out, that changes a lot. The process of layout changes. The painting really never stays the same. It's a kind of process of exploration. So I'll lay down certain colors, color relationships, and then constantly change things. So although I start with a loose template, the whole process is kind of an investigation.
You've talked about the works being meditative for you to work on it. Do you hope that the viewer finds the same kind of experience?
I do hope that they do. For me, that kind of act of meditation lies within responding both harmoniously with the structure and then contradicting the structure. So applying a kind of heavy geometry to the curvilinear line in some cases becomes a contradiction, and then working within that structure kind of unifies me with that base surface. For the viewer, I hope that they enter into them, they feel a sense of the kind of thoughtfulness, the kind of rightness of the entire composition, fragility. Each piece has an emotive quality depending on the color that pushes it in a certain direction. The delicacy, the real sense of, I guess the sense of purpose within each piece is really important for me. So yeah, and I think in that kind of sense of rightness, my hope is that they also come to a sense of rightness. Yeah.
Tell me about the scale of the pieces. What do you find attractive about
the size and scale?
Size.
Yeah, the size for me, it comes from a lot of things. Today I think the art world is largely defined by large-scale installation that tends to be fairly spectacular. And I think for a lot of artists and a lot of, it's an amazing experience to enter into those pieces, but it's also somewhat inaccessible as a maker to some extent. Working small is something that most of us can do in the space that we live. And that was maybe what drew me to it initially. But what I really like about it, as I've kind of, over the last few years, invested more into it, is that the intimacy that it creates, I think, is necessary in today's culture. I think that's one of the things that we kind of live in an era of fragmentation, and I think we all kind of crave a certain intimacy. And so providing pieces that are loosely from 9 to 10 inches square or slightly rectilinear, there's a sense that you have to engage in a really kind of close way with it. There's a conscious looking that starts to occur. And my hope is that an intimate relationship is kind of established between the object and the viewer by way of the size and the subtlety of the treatment of the surface. Yeah. Do
you do work in other formats? I know you think of these pieces very much as a series, a continuing series.
Yeah. I have worked in other formats. This has taken most of my attention over the last 5 years. I'm very interested in photography, so I work with a camera quite a bit, particularly just to do studies, compositional studies with light, space, those kinds of things. And I'm interested in working larger and within other kinds of formats as well. But at this point, this is really dominating my time, and I hope to make this practice a lifelong practice, to make these paintings throughout the rest of my life, in addition to potentially doing some other things.
And you feel like it can evolve over?
Yeah, I'm really interested in that.
Endless combinations.
Yeah, to me that's very interesting. So the kind of creative response for me is that it's pushed to its maximum when there's a kind of limited set of circumstances to work against, rather than kind of unlimited choices. I like to limit my choices. I feel like there's a creative kind of vitality and creative problem solving with that. And I kind of think about this work as a relationship, really, with myself, with the world, and that when you spend time with something like that over time, you increase its intimacy. So I kind of think of when you jump from piece to piece or style to style, it's kind of analogous to being like promiscuous, I guess, which is fine. You know, each offers its own possibilities. For me, the intimacy of working with a single format is, though, very attractive to develop that sense of intimacy.
I know color plays a very large role in the work. You've talked about the emotive power of color in each work. When going from piece to piece, do you find yourself changing color palettes? Or will you find yourself working on a darker format for several months before changing it? It's
actually both. It's increasingly I find myself working within a format kind of over and over. But I typically have about 3 palettes that I work with. I work with 3 paintings at a time, so I have 3 big glass palettes. And so I'll work on one painting and I'll replace the palette altogether with a clean one when I'm starting that painting. When I want to move on to another one and work a little on another one, I'll bring a whole fresh palette and do that. So that my colors each palette has its kind of corresponding painting. So oftentimes I'll be working on something with more neutralized hues alongside something that's highly saturated. Really intense and saturated. So by doing that, I think I'm able to kind of speak to the different kind of moments even within my own day, you know, that each painting kind of has, in some way, allows me to explore that moment.